I guess when I was hired at Qatar Airways, I remember my interview with our CEO there, and I found it pretty odd. He asked me 3 questions. I'll skip 2 of them. Why am I at this podium? It's kind of boring. I'll skip 2 of them, but one of the 3 questions was, what are you going to do about the customer complaints? And it was, 3 questions. That was what no questions on data, no questions on CRM, no questions on customer engagement. What are you going to do with customer complaints? And it's only once I joined, moved my family to Doha. It's a huge move, by the way, containers and everything. It's really hot. Moving dogs there is really challenging. that I found out that the reason he had asked me about customer care and customer complaints was because he saw CRM as being how we handle customer complaints. And really, there was no CRM team. As a matter of fact, CRM was, frankly, customer care with 1 guy overseeing it and 1 analyst. So kind of scary. I won't lie. But I'll actually things have gotten a lot better since then. So what I'll do is I'll take you through a bit of an overview of what is Qatar Airways. I think most of the companies that have presented today, you know them. I'll give you a feel of what is Qatar. We are obsessed with providing the best customer experience. Obsessed. And I think you'll see through some of the analytics we run and through some of the insights we glean how we're actually continuously pushing the barriers of excellence. So I think maybe we could kind of play that quick video around that we have on YouTube, and then I'll just jump in and we'll chat.
Go to that famous city, the one you always see in the movies. And when you're there, ask Nobu to fix you something nice. Well done, chef.
Thank you.
Hop on another plane and go someplace else. Rested? Then go play in the sand. And sing along with 90,000 fans. Go ahead and ask for his autograph. His too. Go to the city of love. And just try to resist that accent. Lay over in Doha, pick up something nice at Harrods. Then go east. Far East, and take care of business. Then see for yourself if these are the best dumplings in the world. Looks like they are. Or maybe you just want to go someplace that doesn't feel like any place else. Then you should really go here. So, where do you want to go?
So that's our new brand spot. I mean, going places together is particularly interesting as a tagline for the simple reason that it's a tagline we're using as we're transforming the organization to be a lot more customer-centric, because we firmly believe that we cannot bake data into the organization, bake customer centricity in the organization alone. It's an exercise that involves everyone. So if we go to the next slide, essentially what you've seen on the video is essentially that we are a global airline. And interestingly enough, we've started to emerge at a time where most of the markets are actually quite mature. Most of the frequent flyer programs have acquired the members in their markets. And all of a sudden, we need to start dealing with a market which is actually quite different than anything anybody's seen before. So we service the world. We've now started expanding to North America. We just launched LA and Boston recently. But with, I think, the One World Alliance has actually really helped penetrate some of the different markets we're actually servicing. And frankly, a lot of the insight we're gathering from our One World partners and frankly, the activity of One World members on us really demonstrates that our product excellence is one of the main drivers for our product adoption. And once you kind of try us, you try us a lot. And we also see that from a redemption perspective. Once we joined One World, people constantly tell me, you know what, I'm so happy you joined One World. I can now use my miles to redeem on you guys. And we're thrilled. We may not be making as much money on a redemption ticket as we would on a full revenue ticket, but the reality is we know that the product is of such a high spec that we'll get a much higher value for every ticket sold. So if we go to the next one, the good news, actually the important thing to know here is that we are the world's best airline, and frankly it's because of our product spec. We are a 5-star airline, and we now aspire to become a 5-star customer experience provider. One World is certainly helpful. It gives us a lot more coverage versus our peers in the region. We fly 164 aircraft to 153 destinations. We have 40,000 employees, and 21,000 are with the airline alone. So it's a pretty big footprint. If you go to the next slide, please. By the way, we've just ordered 328 additional aircraft. I don't know if you know what that means, but just keeping pace with that kind of growth, it's exhausting. I've grayed significantly in the last 6 months. We're one of the rare companies that actually flies every single Airbus aircraft. We've got 9 380s on order, 110 777s, and 84 narrow-body aircraft that are going to be flying across Africa. One of the key differentiators for us, of course, is not only do we do the long haul, but we actually cover the short and medium hauls, which really allows us to not only offer that premium service on the really long haul point-to-point, but we actually extend that great service that we offer on the shorter hauls as well. We actually induct 1 new aircraft every 10 days. I think I was told it was 11 days now. So that's a lot. Is there a clicker here somewhere? Oh, yeah, awesome. Sorry about that. Oh, by the way, we're also growing internationally through partnerships. One of our partners is IAG. IAG is the mother company of British Airways, Aer Lingus, Iberia, and Welling. And I just found out today that we increased our share of IAG 12%. So you can imagine that introduces a whole other dynamic to the puzzle. And for the not football, soccer fans in the room, we are, of course, the global sponsor for FC Barcelona. All right. Now, I've talked about this. What's key here is that what you have here is the growth curves. ASKs are available seat kilometers. And essentially, to the top right, you can see that the growth curves of the industry in orange are about 5%. There's a bit of a peak this year. And the blue curve is essentially Middle Eastern carriers. So there's a 2 to 3 time multiple on the growth rates between the industry and the Middle East. The graph at the bottom here, bottom right, is essentially the average seat kilometer growth by airline in the Middle East. And, in the spirit of continuing to gray my hair, you can see that Qatar Airways is now growing at north of 22% this year versus our peers in the region, Emirates and Etihad, which are growing at 10%. So you can imagine that's a huge influx of supply in a market that globally is certainly not growing at that rate. And, just to add to the fun of it all, the whole industry is in disruption, right? Airlines do not own the best travel apps in the world. The biggest airline valuation is a fifth of Uber's. By the way, we millennials will account for 50% of travel spending by 2020, which is a massive shift to our business in terms of how we interact with that customer segment. It completely changes how our loyalty programs should be structured. It reframes the sense of loyalty to something that's a lot closer to instant gratification. And frankly, from a price sensitivity perspective, it really forces us to do our homework in terms of who do we offer the right pricing to, because this segment is really savvy and we just can't increase our yields and pull the wool over their eyes because they just know. And frankly, loyalty, only 9% of travelers book based on loyalty to an airline or a hotel. 9%. I mean, can you imagine the valuation of all those loyalty programs out there? I really want to see what those valuations look like fast forward 10 years from now. Because loyalty programs, if they cannot transition to customer experience programs, are dead in the water. Now, the good news in all this is that 63% of travelers are willing to provide more information in exchange for either relevant promotions or relevant experience. So this is exactly what we're hanging our hat on in terms of changing customer experience. As an industry, I think everybody's kind of identifying this. Spoke to IBM a while back. They said most airlines are focused on these 6 things. They're focused on insight-based, real-time interactions, whether it's from a promotional perspective or changing the customer journey or interacting with you real-time when we lose your luggage. That's what people expect today. Gone are the days when, we lost your luggage. Next thing you had to do, you had to call the airline, and so we'll need 30 days to identify where your luggage is situated. After 30 days, please call us, and we'll actually give you the amount that you claim. I mean, there was a 30-day policy. There still is, in many cases, a 30-day policy when we lose your luggage. That is crazy. Digital transformation, I'm not going to bore you with that. Everybody knows what that is. In our case, digital transformation is also associated to our distribution channels. In most cases, we're trying to reacquire traffic to our own sites. The reality, in the case of Qatar Airways, we do so much business abroad. It's not intuitive for people to come to QatarAirways.com to do business. So we need to change the nature of our partnerships with a lot of the OTAs, a lot of the GDSs, global distribution system providers. Mobile empowerment. key. I mean, if you've ever, by the way, who's flown Qatar Airways in the room? Show of hands. Thank you, Peter. Well, that's not bad. Wow, cool. Thank you. Well, you'll probably have noticed that in cabin we have iPads, and those iPads are actually used for multiple purposes. They are not used to monetize a transaction. They are actually used to deliver an experience. And if you've seen the interface, there's like little stars on every single seat that provides experience and that provides information on every single customer. And that's one form of mobile empowerment that is critical for us. Customer-centric merchandising. Not so much a case for us because we feel we need to provide a full experience when you buy a ticket from us. But you can imagine that as our margins get pushed down, certainly at some point we cannot continue giving away the farm as it pertains to every single seat on the plane. As margins get pushed down, we need to start monetizing, whether it's exit rows. American Airlines. Somebody from American Airlines here? Oh yeah, hey, awesome. Cool. Yes, oh good. Ancillary revenues, huge contributor to airline revenues today. It's a rounding error for us. The reality is we are going to quickly discover ancillary revenues as we grow because, frankly, the margins will get squeezed tighter and tighter. And, of course, differentiation. Loyalty and product, that's great. It's all about customer experience. It's all about creating magical moments for the customer. I know it sounds, everybody says that, but I can tell you that Qatar Airways as a brand is committed not only to the quality of its product, but to delighting customers in every single cabin that they fly. Now, these changes are happening everywhere, and you've got different ways of competing. Air New Zealand, they just acquired an analytics company out of the blue because, frankly, they knew they did not have the capabilities internally to deliver the customer intelligence they required. JetBlue really focused on customer experience innovation. They spend millions and millions of dollars in making sure that their customer experience continuously gets applauded. And then, of course, in the Middle East, you've got Etihad and Emirates. Etihad just announced a $700 million deal with IBM. That has to do with a lot of IT transformation, but a lot of it is really focused on completely transforming how we interact with customers. So if this wasn't enough to get people excited internally, I don't know what is. So let's talk about some of the challenges, right? Everybody's spending money, everybody's moving into analytics. So what are the key challenges? I think I'm not going to bore you with this. Data integration. The silos in airlines are huge. American Airlines knows, we know, everyone knows this. Essentially, we want to create a customer 360, but you know what? Our reservation system is separate from our departure control system. A departure control system tells us who boarded the plane, who was upgraded, who was denied boarding, who flew with a companion, all those things. Imagine, we cannot even reconcile those two elements. E-com data, separate database. Social, separate. Mobile, separate. So the key is not only integrating that data, but then resolving customer identity. For us, of course, we don't have 70% penetration of our sales through our FFP program. We can't. A, we're not as mature. Secondly, our home market is 2.5 million people. I don't know if you know, we could fly all those people every single day of the week and we would never fill our planes. So the reality is we need to start resolving the identity of everyone else we transact with. And I think the presentation today from American Apparel was really telling because for us, it's all about understanding who's known, who's unknown, and who's in the middle. And as soon as we can actually resolve that identity, it's about personalizing it and converting them onto our product because once they try it, they love it. Challenge number 3, asynchronous channel strategy. Obviously, this is a mess. I mean, I'm not going to lie. The reality is we have an email strategy that is disconnected from our mobile strategy, which is disconnected from our web, from our point of sale, and social media. And you can imagine that once I've lost your luggage or once I've actually essentially not boarded you because I've oversold the plane, the last thing you want to hear is, hey, Pete, triple miles today on your next flight. Not interested. I mean, isn't that insulting? The reality is we really need to put our thinking hats on and think about what's priority for the customer. And frankly, if you've been inconvenienced, I need to recover you. That is the first thing I need to do. That is a 5-star experience. That is what we need to do. Forget about selling for a second. Think about retention. It's common sense, right? Other challenges. Obviously, product and service-focused culture. We are a product-focused company. You've seen our seats. They're amazing. I mean, the service is outstanding. I'm not just saying that because I work for Qatar Airways, but I worked for Air Canada before, best airline in North America. I flew United more than I care to admit, flew Delta as well. I mean, flew everyone under the sun. And I am constantly astounded by how amazing the service is. But you know what? It's a product and a service-focused culture. It is not focused so much on anything else. Once you're in the aircraft, that's all that matters. Everything else, the ground services, is not something we're really focused in on. But the customer journey is everything, right? We can deliver the best experience in the world in the aircraft. If we lose your baggage, or don't do the job when you're checking in, or really serve you up really uninteresting information when you're surfing our website or getting our emails, it's not a 5-star experience. Intuitive and anecdotal decision making. I know this is the fact across a number of airlines, regardless of the size. Many of our senior decision makers make gut calls. They get complaints, and out of a complaint, we change a policy based on an exception. It's astounding. Lack of qualified resources. We have amazing resources in revenue management. These guys optimize every seat on every kilometer flown, on every single origin and destination. It's really incredible. They understand when they're trending over the target, and then they start jacking up the prices because they know the market can bear it. But outside of our product and our channel specialists, we don't really have customer analysts. We don't have consumer analysts, or we didn't until recently. And retention. You know what? It's tough to retain people when you don't really have a career path for them. And you can become a super specialist in revenue management, but there is only so many options for you past that experience. So this is kind of me, let's see here, 5 months ago. I'll let you guys read it. Let's solve this problem by using the big data none of us have the slightest idea what to do with. And the reality is, if your company is not comfortable with data, is really focused on product or a service in particular, is not used to using data to drive decisions, don't show up with a big data strategy. Start small. Essentially what we've done is pretty simple and straightforward. We've identified the key groups internally where we can really transform the experience in a way that's impactful. And that's digital marketing and e-commerce, ground services, customer contact centers, frequent flyer programs, customer care, sales, and in-flight services and lounge. All of those, many of those actually you'll see, have a direct touch with the customer, Sales, of course, as corporate sales. They deal with the companies that purchase from us. Frequent flyer program, best customers. Ground services, they make your life miserable or fantastic. Digital marketing and e-commerce, that is something that I wouldn't say is ignored, but is not personalized for us. And customer contact centers, frankly, they are trying to manage costs down. When in fact, a 5-star airline should not be trying to manage costs down. We should be delighting you when you call our customer contact centers. We should be delighting you when you call about a complaint. Essentially what we've done is we've brought a cross-functional team made up of all these people. We've mapped out the customer journey. And for each of these groups, we've identified a series of use cases that would essentially significantly improve the customer experience. And we've then essentially run them through a technology and operational assessment and a contribution to profit analysis. And we've then prioritized those use cases into quick wins and then longer-term projects. Essentially, based on those quick wins, we've essentially started to demonstrate significant value. I've got a couple of use cases that I'll show you in a minute. It's really impactful. When you're a company that's all about customer experience and you can demonstrate that you are knocking it out of the park with analytics, then all of a sudden, the wallets start opening a crack. Because we're an airline. I mean, we may be even from the Middle East, but we do not have endless resources. I want to break that myth immediately. It is very, very painful to request funds. And the degree of diligence increases as we bring additional talent that comes from other airlines, particularly airlines in North America, by the way. So obviously, those quick wins immediately drive momentum. And the second piece is you cannot have quick wins without having at least a minimum level of localized analytics and performance reporting. I mean, if you can't prove value, then who cares? It's like a tree in the forest. This has allowed us to actually then move into data consolidation and single customer view. From the moment you can start demonstrating that you can actually derive quick wins, you get a license to start doing some more advanced work. And it was really telling because a single customer view for us, we demonstrated the value of a single customer view in customer complaints of all places. We were able to resolve complaints at a unique customer level. Instead of treating every single complaint as a unique case, which is what we used to do. You'd complain once, hey, you lost my bag. You'd complain twice, my seat was broken. You complained 3 times, my in-flight entertainment system wasn't functional. Well, we treat those all as individual complaints and give you a really, really pitiful kind of compensation. But now we actually know that you've complained 3 times. And you know what? You are super high value for us. Well, you know what? We're actually going to do better by you. Maybe we'll upgrade you next time you fly. But that resolution has actually transformed how we actually recognize customers today. And this is the kind of stuff that really starts allowing us to move up this pyramid into a much more focused one Qatar Airways type of strategy. Not going to bore you with people with processes. We talked about the importance of cross-functional teams. This is all that this is about. We've now created a center of excellence in analytics, which is focused on data science on behalf of the organization and essentially consumer analytics that are then seconded to each of the functions within. And frankly, there's also a number of distributed analytical resources that report to each of those verticals, which are essentially a dotted line into the center of excellence. What that allows us to do is it allows these people to have relevant dialogues together and to actually, for us as an organization, start rotating them across the organization to create the next generation of leaders. Second piece is we've also created a team that's focused on customer experience and engagement. This team is also set up as a center of excellence, and this team, with the analytics team, can then start working on incremental improvements. So the journey and the analytics are essentially tied together. So let's talk about some of these use cases that we prioritize. There's many of them. I think there's north of 12 of them, but they're the 3 most salient ones. I'll just skip this one for a second. This is the one that's actually demonstrated the most value. Back to the first question my CEO asked me, what are you going to do about customer complaints? Well, what we actually did do is we reduced the total handling time from 20 days to 5 days. Part of it was people, and we didn't have enough people, so we hired some people. That was nice. We made some process improvements. That was nice. We implemented a much more robust Microsoft platform, which allows us to resolve the cases to the customer. That was critical. That was the first inflection point that you see, that first black arrow there. That was the first significant tipping point for us. And the second piece is really telling because we realized that if we wanted to improve further, we really needed to understand how data was created from the transaction. And in order to further reduce the total handling time, we needed to start identifying states within the data. So when you complain, it's pretty simple. We get the complaint from you guys. We then investigate. And this is shocking. Most people fall off their chairs when I tell them this. But almost every complaint we receive is investigated at the nth degree. We figure out what the root cause of it is, and we have corrective measures that are applied against every single complaint. Now that's a lot of work. So you can imagine, now you can understand why it was 20 days. You've got people running around trying to figure out what the root cause of every single complaint is. So what we've done is we've now started integrating data from voyage reports. So all those flight attendants you see in the cabin, they essentially take note of issues that customers are having. If there's an in-flight entertainment system issue, that's taken note of. If I've spilled coffee on you, hopefully not too often, I'll take note of that. If your seat is broken, I'll take note of that. If you're a disruptive passenger, by the way, I'll take note of that. And we now integrate all these pieces of data, whether it's from a check-in counter, whether it's from an airline counter, all those pieces of data are now integrated into our system. And so when somebody complains today, the goal is not for all these people to start doing the running, to reach out to our cabin services team to figure out what happened on flight 661 on destination to LA, but we can actually retrieve those reports directly and validate that the complaint is actually true. Because believe it or not, there's an immense amount of fraud. And if all you do is start paying out, giving double, triple miles, 25% off, free upgrades, I mean, you are just giving away the bank, trust me. And some markets are worse than others. I won't get into the details. Customer experience. Believe it or not, we really relied on IATA ratings to assess our success in customer satisfaction across touch points. We've recently just implemented our own customer satisfaction tracking, and it goes all the way from pre-flight all the way down to arrival. We've got the scores. We compare them against the IATA scores. And although this is interesting, what's really key for us is not so much the scores themselves. They're pretty awesome, by the way. As you can see here, the green line is us. The little black line is the best in class. So you can see that we're pretty great across the board. except for boarding. And this is for business class, by the way, except for boarding. But it's pretty telling because these stats vary wildly, oftentimes by market. Not so much on the in-flight section because the in-flight piece is pretty consistent, but there are airports because of the layouts or because of the staff or because of the management that are actually really, they're all over the place. And our goal in doing this was not only to measure it, but frankly, to publish it down to the station managers. Because we do not only report data, we want to essentially enable people that are managing each of those stations to do something about it. And we're essentially embedding some of these metrics into their own performance now. So those station managers, not only do they actually have to manage flows of customers, manage complaints, whatever else, they now have specific targets to achieve as it pertains to customer satisfaction. And we compare peer stations of one against the next. But you need to be able to publish your data. Publish your data and make it drillable to the nth level that's salient to your business. That has been a significant revelation for us. If you can democratize analytics, the adoption rates are astronomical. And what's particularly telling for us is we've done some, this is not our data, of course, this is pretty sensitive data. We've done some asymmetric analysis, which essentially allows us to look at all of those dimensions and figure out which one is most important, right? You want to deliver a 5-star experience, but not at any cost. You got to understand what really makes up a 5-star experience and what do you want to prioritize. And this is what this allows us to do. It allows us to see what are key performance type of touch points and what are bonus touch points and what are core touch points. And doing some of this work, although will allow us to weigh how we actually evaluate those scores all the way down to each of our stations. Wow, I'm on time, 4 minutes, 24 ahead. So this is critical. To be the change, you first need to light the fuse. The key is you need to light the right fuse. And I was having a conversation early on today. Somebody asked me, well, how do you know what the right fuse is? And it's a combination of things. We all know what our strategic imperatives are. So you want to make sure that you line up a lot of your work to some of your strategic imperatives. That's not a surprise. I mean, that's pretty evident. But there's a people component, right? And we all deal with people. Some people provide significant resistance. Other people don't. And there's only one reason why we managed to actually gain so much traction, because we aligned ourselves with some of the right people. We started working with our ground services team. You know why? Because they are the people that get the most amount of complaints. They bear the brunt of 60% of the airline complaints. Guess why? Well, because most of the transactions, most of the stress occurs at the airport. You check in, your plane's late, who do you scream after? It's that poor attendant at the airport. You lose your luggage, what happens? You scream at, there's somebody at the airport that's there to pick up the pieces. Well, these guys were really committed on working with us. And the amount of work we've done with them is astounding. We've saved them millions of dollars only because of their openness to doing some of their work. And some of these things are essentially, you either do it from the bottom or you do it from top down. And in this case, we did it both sides. And another business case that is not here is something that's actually pretty astounding. You know, when you miss a flight or when a flight is canceled, an airline has a duty of care. We need to reprotect you, right? Well, in some cases, your profile may not allow you to be placed in a hotel outside of the confines of the airport, right? Our operations team had negotiated great rates 3 years forward, best deal ever. What they failed to account in their calculation was that the rejection rate of certain people was so high that we were overpaying on a really low rate per room. And so we were paying for rooms that were left empty when there was a snowstorm in Philadelphia or there was a sandstorm in Doha. And you had a whole bunch of people that were left stranded at the airport, not correctly recovered, because frankly, the financial guys that made the decision hadn't taken the time to look at the essential rejection rates of specific types of customers and nationalities. And once we modeled it out, we immediately identified that we could actually not only decrease the cost of the airline by $2 to $3 million, but immediately improve the customer experience during really trying times when your plane is canceled and you don't know when you're going to get home. And though that's an example of how you start building partnership momentum by working with some of those key individuals in the organization. And that is the key as we actually look at some of these different projects that we've essentially, we've essentially managed to start pushing things like master data management, DMPs. All of these were essentially unlocked by working on projects that were key to key individuals in the organization that are particularly aligned with their value proposition. And we consistently pushed on the fact that you want to be a 5-star airline, here are the things you need to do. But you know what? Let us prove it to you. We'll actually develop use cases that focus in on specific aspects that deliver specific revenue or customer experience improvements that will allow us to gain the keys to the finance boardroom. And I think on that note, that's it.